Quantum Bombs.
Welcome to Quantum Bombs, a commentary show on the human condition through metaphysics and freedom. You know, I gave my show that weird log line that's a catch-all because number one topic I love is metaphysics, which is philosophy, spirituality, and physics all mashed together. And then I ended it with freedom for shows like today. It's my way where I can, as a libertarian, talk to you guys about geopolitics and culture, which sometimes I find interesting, and I want to make shows like today. And after having a whopper of an election last week with Thomas Massie losing the Republican seat for him to be a representative in Congress, you just got to talk about it, guys. And I think it's a truly interesting time to be alive. My take on it is, yes, that America was 249 years old, and that's the end of the republic for me. I remember reading about it in the bathtub. I hadn't checked social media all day. That day I was working, and I was just like, I'm mad. If you follow me, I was posting, I will not be celebrating our 250th anniversary this year because the republic has died in my eyes. We have bought out a tick. It's either I think it's probably 70%. We bought out that seat, and 30% is somehow we don't know how to run a clean operation of voting. And why can't am I crazy? Not really. When you start just looking simply at the numbers on how many people voted in the last 10 years for a Republican primary seat, and then how many extra people voted. But yes, we threw in $32 million of money in funding from Trump's side and from AIPAC, which is Israel, to get this unknown man that we just shoved down the boomer's throat. And on, a side note, if you didn't hear too much about on the grounds that day, for the influencers that went out and asked the people that were voting, every single Thomas Massie voter knew exactly the reasons they were voting for him. And the people that were brave enough to admit that they were voting for Ed Gala, whoever, didn't really have a policy in mind. Some were brave enough just to speak the honest truth that he was endorsed by President Trump. And that is okay. And occasionally they could find boomers that actually believed that he was in a throuple. And if you haven't kept up completely, Thomas Massie, they did a deepfake videos of him dating Ilhan Omar and AOC. So not only was he in a throuple, he was in a throuple with two of the enemies. Oh yes, totally just like him. I thought that was an interesting angle. A lot of people didn't, I was telling my dad that today, who I'm able to quickly put into perspective of how boomers are doing this. And that's why I think this show is important. I just want to go over how I see things playing out for 2028, or what I'd like to dream could possibly happen, because someone like him who watches Fox News as a boomer isn't even aware that people like me exist. And I'd like to think that I am the majority of the conservative thought spectrum. I don't even want to say right, because I'd like to think this is everyone from, I'm going to say center left, but I want to joke center left, all the way over here to the far right. I'm just kidding. I'm only thinking of the spectrum of how the left left the left, and they just kept going crazier and crazier. And so everybody that was on the left is still now considered the center. I'm just, okay. Anyways, I'm making this show today because, I just wanted to talk a little bit about being a libertarian. To me, Thomas Massie was one of the last maybe standing libertarians that could represent someone like myself. And here's the way I'll put it. I'm still learning about what it means to be a libertarian. Don't know everything. And I'll maybe make some shows so we could learn together. I remember exactly where I was when I became a libertarian. I was in the car with my brother, and I was asking him, who I believe is a libertarian, how do they/he feel about gay marriage? And he gave me the ugliest look, how could you ask such a dumb question? And because the way I framed it was, do you believe they should allow gay people to be married, whether it's on a state or a federal level? Both questions are wrong. You see, he pointed out to me quickly, the question you are supposed to be asking is, should the government be involved in your marriage? That's the question. So that's the fundament. That moment I heard that, I knew I was a libertarian for the rest of my life, because to me, it is a framework of philosophy, a philosophy-based, fundamental-based framework of how to look at the world, whereas the Republican Party and Democrats, two sides of the same shitty coin, are framed by the narrative of the puppet masters. It has to be the perfect example of the framing. The framing, you're being controlled by the framing. The questions are dumb. The logic are dumb. Every time you're listening to anybody that's going out in a race, for example, they're asking dumb questions that are keeping you in that mindset of, should you allow gay or straight people to get married, when that's not even the question you should be debating? Should the government be involved in your marriage? And if so, what are the perks and the benefits? And what is the setbacks? We're being controlled and framed to think about politics in a very stupid standpoint. And when an election comes up, for example, with RFK Jr., you're never really going to see a third party independent, because the point I want to make this is, could Massie win in 2028? And I'll talk about the teams we'd be creating here in a second. But then I thought quickly back to the RFK Jr. debacle. RFK Jr. wasn't able to run as a third party, but we quickly saw how bad he was going to do when he was running independently. But because of the Democrats, and they were very corrupt, they made it legally impossible for him to run. If you can't remember, they basically sued him enough that even with his millionaireess or billionaireess, I don't know, donor running as VP with him, he wouldn't have been able to have a fair chance. So he joined the Trump ticket. But the point I need to make is that RFK Jr. was an interesting play, because had he ran, he would have split the Trump ticket slightly enough where Trump probably would have lost. So him coming over to Trump's ticket was important. However, after this, where we are today with MAGA/MEGA, MEGA's Make Israel Great Again, with this divide we have in the Republican Party, I think that we could have a running shot. I think there is enough people like myself that are under the age of 65 or 55 and younger, that are not of the boomer demographic, that see the nuances of what it is and know that Trump has changed on what he's doing. The 3 or 4 things, if I could name off the top of my head, the Epstein files, the glyphosate, and the biggest one that'll come up here in a second, the technocratic AI with the Department of Defense being the biggest alarm bells. And I'll go over like 2 or 3 examples in case you aren't aware. So for us that were, and then anti-war, right? So there's many different things that Trump has changed on. Because he's Trump, I don't see him really being someone that's like, hey guys, I was wrong about the Epstein files, let's get back into it. Because I thought about that. If you realize, if you apologize to someone, you just took all of the person that's mad at you's power away. That's all he has to do. But Trump is an apologist, so he's never going to fold on his Epstein stance. So we have team, they're calling it now the woke right. This is the MEGA, this is the Ben Shapiro, this is the Trump supporters, the Benny Johnsons, the cat turd on X, all the Laura Loomers out there. That is, and what's his name, Mark Levin. All of those people are now what's left. That's woke right versus, I don't know what to call us. We'll just call it burn it down. I think the PBD podcast said something, it caught me off guard because I'm like, well, I'm part of that team, but it was like a bad, not so nice name. So it might have been the burn it all down people. I'm the burn it all down people because that's truly the only resolution. And I think it could work because you've got everybody that from left to right that believes our government or knows our government is corrupt, knows that what we've argued about for years is never going to be the answer. You've got the people that are on the far right or the far left that actually believe the enemy is the person on the other side, and they're so caught up in CNN and Fox News that they can't even hear nuanced thought or logic within their own party when it comes up. But for the most part, I'd like to believe there's this massive side of us. Everyone under the age of 65 or younger would probably consider this new ticket that would be formed by Thomas Massie. Basically, anybody that's not corrupt and bought out and paid for by money, people that aren't, and then of course that's not going to solve all the problems until we get out of lobbying, until we get out of term limits, meaning 4 years tops. I know you can't do a lot of change with term limits, but you could at least endorse the next person that would see what you believe to be true to your, like, so you pass on your office and hopefully, you endorse the candidate and hope they get elected. So term limits, oh yeah, and then no playing in our stock markets, no career, you basically can't make a career out of it. So I think that's my solution. if we put that forward in 2028, a non-corrupt party is what I'm going to call it. I think America, the people that are nuanced and younger are smart enough to see it for what it is. The people that are willing to debate, Ed Gala, whoever his name is, was unwilling to do any debate for his seat against Thomas Massie. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, I really believe, we've got like a 60% chance of government probably always remaining corrupt. What I mean by that is the Federal Reserve will always be there. The income tax will always be there. Also, illegal. We will remain puppets and slaves. There will be a cabal that runs the world. And by the way, speaking of the cabal, they're currently running Trump. I don't think Trump was always compromised. I believe sometime around, this is my theory, is that right after Charlie Kirk died, right before his funeral, that's when I saw, boom, he changed. I remember all of a sudden Trump was being interviewed and he immediately knew who the killer was. It was that guy, and he was saying that it was him. I knew he was somebody basically, I believe, threatened Trump. That was your boy, you're next, or someone in your family is next if you don't toe the line. And ever since the week before the Charlie Kirk funeral, Trump has gone completely in the wrong direction regarding most of what he told people he wouldn't. So to state my thesis clearly, I believe that in 2028, someone like Thomas Massie, an independent, non-corrupt, could actually win the seat of the presidency because we've had enough. There is nobody that they could throw us on the right or the left that I believe we would believe actually going to be honest this time and have the will of the people. I want to get now to the teams. I realize is that could Thomas Massie, Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard, or somebody, I don't know, beat a Rubio-Vance ticket? I've also heard people talk, the PBD podcast, speaking of, I think they're a bit naive. They actually think that Tulsi Gabbard would join JD Vance on a ticket. I don't know. This is me. I could say I could be wrong, so I'm going to make a claim here. But no, I definitely don't think she could side with them, both Rubio or JD Vance, because she's already seen them side with the devil, and her values aren't compromised. She's not for sale. Why are we against Rubio and Vance in the future as regular Republicans and MAGA people and libertarians like myself? I didn't want to be. I actually liked Marco Rubio the best. His speech in Munich was beautiful, and I wanted to vote for him. I wanted him to be president. However, he's obviously old school Republican that's a warmonger into the stick, and he would just be the same thing. Vance is a big no because of Palantir, his ties to Palantir. For those that aren't keeping up with how technocratic we've become, in 2025, June of 2025, Trump signed an executive order giving them the ability to make as many data centers as they need. Watch my show I just made on data centers, but we have 3,000 being made. They're the gigawatt kind that on every single measure are polluting our environment. And I'm not saying that from a green stance. I don't even believe in global warming, but I'm actually meaning that. Polluting, taking water, spending energy. I call them energy conversion buildings. They don't care about you having AI. They really do not need you to have AI, and we do not need 3,000 of these gigawatt buildings, 3,400 to be exact, for you to use AI. And by 2030, we'd be double China. Right now, we have 60% more than China, or 70% more. By 2030, based on both of their projections, we're still going to have double the amount of China. At least China's honest about why they're using them. 70% of their data centers are used for a surveillance state. Which brings me to my point. I believe that whether it's Republican or Democrat, they want to garner us into a surveillance state, a digital grid where everything is tracked. Every dollar you spend, every mile you drive, it's all controlled, and you don't have any power because it's all done digitally. So you will be a good or a bad boy, etc., based on that control. I didn't really, if you would have told me that Trump would garner this in, I'd be like, BS a year ago. But all signs point to go. So, you can tell me, I don't know. Other things, I've made videos about AI's planning war. Please watch it. It's how he's working already with, how his behavior is bad towards Anthropic regarding how he works with our defense systems and AI. It's very questionable, and not taking any safety protocols in our AI race against the bad China or Russia, which really it's not. It's just, I don't know why. I think he's captured. That's my point. So I wanted to put that out there. I'm optimistic for a Thomas Massie saving us in 2028, garnering in the nation that our forefathers wanted. So we won't be able to celebrate our 250th birthday this year, but maybe in 2 years from now, we'd be able to celebrate it when we really save the republic with an independent candidate that both people on the left and the right that actually are watching podcasts and reading nuanced news and aren't captured by CNN and Fox News could vote for. All right. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on an unplanned episode without any regard for which way I take my speech and thought. I like to do that sometimes. Have a good one and stay free.
Quantum Bombs.